Hey, this is singer-songwriter Danny Horovitz, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the show. And Curtis, you're back. You're back again.
Dude, Max, I'm back again. You keep having me back. I don't know why, but
I don't
I'm
know either,
happy.
actually. I'm kind of
I'm
confused.
ecstatic to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you back, man. I'm glad to have you back. But, before we jump into this week's guest, Curtis, I want to make a suggestion, man. Just hear me out, okay? It's a radical idea, okay?
Uh-huh.
You, me, our significant others. I found this great cabin. It's very secluded. It's off of a lake. How about we spend the weekend there? We can just take some time, unpack some shit, just
Fall's right around the corner.
Exactly.
And
And I promise you, we're definitely not going to die up there.
Oh, great. That's the one thing I was hoping wasn't going to happen.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
But don't worry about it. That, folks, is not me making a sporadic plan for the weekend, but that's more or less the subject of our next guest book. You recognize the name Joseph Falank from a previous interview for his last book, Renewal. This was back in 22, actually. Funny thing, almost 2 years ago to the day. And he's back to talk about his soon-to-be-released book, The Vanishing at Echo Lake, out on October 22nd. Joseph, welcome back to the show, man. It's great to have you here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me back. This was, I said this to you in an email when we were setting this all up. This was my favorite thing to do when I was doing Renewal. I had a blast on your show. I couldn't wait to come back. This was the first thing I thought of when it was like, here's when your book's coming out. And I was like, okay, I know the first person I want to reach out to.
Me?
You.
Oh my God. I love that, man.
Yeah,
I love that.
You're doing something right, buddy.
Something like that, I suppose. Can't imagine what that is, but I'm doing something right. But that's really cool, man. I love to hear that. And I've been loving the book. I'm only like a few chapters into it. But yeah, we got the advanced copy, folks. Of course we did. And this is
only few people got that. So.
This is a creepy as hell book, but I'm going to walk everyone through it, okay? So this is 3 different couples, Ben and Kelsey, Teddy and Denna, and Pete and Carrie. They're getting together for the first time in 16 months since the pandemic started. The whole thing is about really like reconnecting, but they're all bringing their own baggage, shall we say, their own relationship issues and challenges. But things are going to get so much worse than just unpacking some personal stuff, guys. This book opens with missing people, basically. First, we have a bird losing all of its children all at once, and then a parent losing her children. That's a powerful opening, sir, to what's going to be a very, very powerful book. And we're going to dive all into the story, but we want to ask about the cover, because Curtis and I were talking about this prior to the show. We absolutely loved the cover for this one. How did that one come about?
Well, I absolutely love the cover too. The cover was actually designed put together by the publishers at BHC Press. They put it together for me. I don't have much say in that, and my previous books, before Renewal, I had 4 books before that, and 3 of those, I designed one, and then I had a friend of mine, Christopher Wright, he designed 2 of them. When I started publishing books with BHC Press, they took over doing the cover work, or the artwork for the covers. And Renewal, I love that cover, nice and simple. This one, for the Vanishing at Echo Lake, I just loved it. It's just so moody, so atmospheric, so simple too. And I'm all about simple.
I like that. Now, as I mentioned before, this book is set amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of talk that goes into people being shut in for a long time, not seeing each other for a while. Why do this, though? Why kind of put this amidst COVID, and how does it kind of influence the story as things go along?
Okay, so when I thought about doing this book, this was back in the summer of 21, and at that time we were just kind of getting our first little hints of, hey, maybe we're going to get past this pandemic. We've all been shut in. We're wearing masks everywhere we go. We've been told to stay 6 feet apart. There's all these rules. And when we were getting into the late spring, early summer, we started to have like a little bit of relaxing of those rules. We could, up in upstate New York where I am, we would hear things like, okay, if you're outside with a group of people, you can take your mask off. If you're doing this, and I think when I was writing the book and I had the idea for it, COVID felt like just one more thing to put in there to worry about. And also at the same time, like, it didn't feel right to write a story and not include COVID in some way, because at that time we didn't know how long is this going to last. And I mean, even it's still around now. Like, I I worried a little bit because I thought a lot of authors they're gonna talk about COVID, they're gonna put it in their books. I kind of wanted it there in the background a little bit. I wanted this other thing to take over, but certainly I wanted it a part of the characters' lives and people reading it to be like, oh, that's how I felt. I remember that. And so that's why I wanted to put it in there.
And of course, the title of the book, The Vanishing at Echo Lake, automatically makes me think to one of my favorite vacation spots up in the wee white mountains of New Hampshire. So let's talk about that for a second. Where is this location for the story take place?
In the first couple of drafts of the manuscript, it was actually known as Lake Petonia. That's actually a real lake about 45 minutes from where I live. As I would do revisions and such, I thought to this place called Echo Lake, which is another place near me. Now, the actual, like, the descriptions of it in the book are completely fictional, but I thought Echo Lake just has that nice sound to it. Sounds like something that would be in a thriller, in a scary story.
Yeah, calling it like Lake Butterfly just wouldn't have the same, thrust.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you need something that, yeah, sounds ominous.
Was Echo Lake your first choice, or did you go through a couple different names to kind of try out?
It was Lake Petonia at first because I
Hmm.
just thought, well, that sounds unique, Lake Petonia. Then, you're reading it more when you're doing the revisions and you're like, it's not hitting hard enough. And so then, just kind of doing searches around from where I am, and Echo Lake was one. I was like, oh, that sounds perfect. Echo Lake just comes right off and
Hmm.
has that perfect sound to it.
Okay. Now let's talk about the people. Six people, three couples. One of the couples is actually on the verge of a separation. The other is going through different issues when it comes to pregnancy, and they're really worried about how they're going to be perceived by their fellow friends. But what are some of the other issues that they bring to the table? And
When I thought of this story, I wanted something super simple. When I was doing renewal, people would ask, "What's it about?" And I am not good with the elevator pitch. I'm not good with the in 2 sentences, here's what the book's about. So when I thought about this book, it came to me as 6 people meeting up at a secluded lake house, one by one they vanish. And when I thought of that, it was like, that's perfect. That's the book I want to write. So then it was, okay, well, how are they vanishing? And then who are these 6 people? So when I thought about these 6 people, it was, well, they're all friends. And if they're all friends, then there's something they've got to have in common. If you think about yourself, if you have a spouse, who are the friends that you're hanging out with? And I thought about my wife and I and some of our friends. Well, like, yes, we have some differences, but we also have a whole lot of similarities. So it was like trying to figure out, how these 6 people would interact with each other. How close are they? They haven't seen each other in a long time, so they want to be able to pick right back up quickly. But then separately in each couple, yeah, they're dealing with different things, because I felt just to have 6 people coming together, there's no drama between them amongst themselves or even between, pairs and pairs. Well, that's just not interesting. It's got to be interesting in some way before the vanishings start happening. So I thought it kind of added an extra layer of tragedy to be having, like, our 2 characters, Ben and Kelsey, they're going through a separation. They also have 3 kids. So when things start happening, you think, okay, yes, something could happen to them at any moment. Maybe they'll never reconcile, but also they have 3 kids at home. So that's just another layer of tragedy there. If one of them disappears, well, now they're a single parent. If they both disappear, their kids have no parents. So it was coming up with all that different type of drama, different things that, different couples go through. Different couples, they have marriage problems, they have communication problems, or, they have financial problems. And so it was just trying to figure out what was the best balance for each couple to be dealing with. And then when they come together, how do those play out amongst each other? Like some of them have COVID concerns and some of them don't have COVID concerns. So that also creates another problem when they're together.
And I really like that you took the time to do this because in a lot of cases, these people are just like cannon fodder. They're just there to be killed, basically.
Right.
And we don't care about them, but you give us reasons to care. So do you feel like that really connects the reader with the characters a lot more strongly?
Well, whenever I write, it's always characters. I always think of characters. The actual first draft of this book, it was 90 pages before anything at the lake even happened because it was all set up for these characters. It was meeting Ben and Kelsey, and then it was meeting Denna and Tenny, and Teddy, and then it was meeting Pete and Carrie. And I find some of my strengths are when two people are together and they're having a conversation and they're going back and forth. I can do that for 20 pages. That's not difficult for me to do. So I really spent a long time getting to know them and having them like discuss their problems and but not resolve them. There was always something hanging between them. So when we did revisions, I had to cut a lot of it out, but not really nothing like you're not losing a whole lot. It just kind of got sped up a little. But I am always about character.
You talk about getting to know the characters. How long do you think you spent just kind of crafting the characters and fleshing them out before you actually decide to write the story?
Well, I do outline because I need to know if I'm going to spend 2 years on a project. I've got to know I'm not going to write myself into a corner or
Yep.
I'm going to get to some spot and be like, well, I don't know what to do now. So I do outline. It's not very in depth. I keep it very loose because things change. I think as far as Ben and Kelsey, I knew they were having marriage problems, but I didn't know exactly what till I started writing it. And then it was like, well, this feels right. Maybe it's really just coming down to communication because that's a problem a lot of us can can look at and say, oh yeah, I've dealt with that in my own life, or I know friends of mine who were dealing with that. So communication it felt right for them for what they were dealing with. And so as I'm writing, I'm also figuring that part out.
So let's talk about each of the couples here in terms of their backstory. Without giving too much away, but giving us like a high cliff note overview of each couple, what do they bring into the table here in the story?
So Ben and Kelsey, we'll talk about them first. There are two who are having marriage problems because of communication issues between them. And we find out right before the story begins that they've already decided they're going to separate. We don't know for how long. It just they feel like they've come to that point. Separation is what they need to hopefully make things better. And then so they're trying to figure out how they're going to go about this. How is this going to affect their kids? They're not even sure now they want to go to the lake because now you've got to kind of put on airs. You don't want to act like something's wrong in front of your friends. Then you got Denna and you've got Teddy. And their problem is Denna needs Teddy to grow up. He's got to find she needs him to find a more stable job because in the times of COVID, when it was like really hitting us hard, a lot of people were losing their jobs. A lot of places were closing. So she needs him to kind of step up and he would really like a family, but she doesn't really want to provide that. She doesn't want to start to prepare that until he is financially ready. So that's the issues they're bringing along. And then you've got Pete and Carrie. They're not really at odds with each other, but they realize that this is their first time really kind of getting away from they have a newborn at home. So they're kind of getting away for the first time and they're anxious about that. And again, like COVID becomes a part in between where, oh, these guys, they didn't get vaccinated. How do we feel about that? We don't want to bring it home if something happens. So there's like almost like a little bit of mistrust in these friends all meeting up. Like they want to meet up. It's all on the surface. Oh, we want to meet up. We haven't seen each other in forever, but they've all got these underlying things that really threaten to ruin their time.
Now, this story starts out certainly very dark, as I mentioned earlier, and then it pivots to more of a drama. and then it's going to pivot again. What happens to pivot this from, as you mentioned, 90 pages in, from more of a drama to more of a something darker?
Well, so initially it did. It started out complete drama. The original beginning started with Ben and Kelsey. So
Oh.
in thinking about like the story, I was like, well, we really need to lay some like breadcrumbs, show people that things are going to happen. So that's when the bird and her missing the sparrow and her missing babies, or uh, a woman who lives at Echo Lake with her kids suddenly can't find her kids. So it was putting these little pieces in that show you these guys are our protagonists, the ones we're going to follow. They are headed for something that one they don't know about yet. So the reader will know before them, and that they're worried about other things, and now there's going to be something else for them to worry about. So kind of puts in a little bit of suspense in that and they don't know.
I want to ask about the opening because you said that you didn't originally start with this dark opening. What happened that made you say, you know what, we got to change things?
It was really just in going through all the revisions. It was, yeah, this is great. This is great. I really like how the chapters with everybody traveling to the lake are turning out, but we're not getting a sense yet of the danger. So sometimes like people, they're reading a book. Oh, this is a book about people disappearing. So where are the disappearances? So it was putting things in earlier to kind of sprinkle in the don't worry, we're gonna get there, and this is what's happening.
I have to say, I really enjoyed the chapter with the bird because you managed to make it very human. You know, the way you wrote it, you managed to really convey the emotions of this mother that suddenly its kids are just gone.
And that was tough because and actually the inspiration for that was I remembered a book by Stephen King called Under the Dome, and it begins with I don't know if it's a woodchuck or a beaver, but it's just kind of going along looking for its breakfast, and then the dome comes down on it. For some reason, that's he picked to have it from the point of view of some animal, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. And I'm not just saying that humans are disappearing at the lake, so let's start with a bird.
Damn, Stephen King. Just squashing this woodchuck.
Yeah.
What the woodchuck ever do to you, Stephen King?
Yeah, I don't know what a woodchuck ever did to him, but that was the first victim of the dome coming down.
So we get into the character development and writing, and that's a bit of a lengthy process that you had talked about previously, and then you started doing revisions and chopping that down. But let's talk about once things start going dark, once those mysterious, sort of uncertain things start happening. How do you still make the readers care about the characters once things start going wrong?
It was very important to me that when things started going wrong and those darker things started happening in the story, that we saw different levels of panic. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but we do see one character who can't handle their panic, and they start to say things, do things that are, you know, kind of selfish. They're just ready to get the heck out of there. They don't care. They're not concerned about anybody else. They just want to get out. And even I thought six friends. Everybody's going to be different. You're going to have the people who are okay. We got to figure out a plan. We got to make sure everybody is okay. There are other people who live up here. What can we do? And you're going to have another person who's like, nope, I'm out. And so it was really like, okay, how do we do this but not make how do we not make it too unbelievable? The people who are concerned about others, a reader would know, you got to get out of there. So we don't want the people who are concerned about others to be looked at as like, oh, they're kind of dumb. They should know already. We don't want that horror movie moment of, no, don't go looking behind the door. We don't want that to happen. But then we don't want the people who are, no, we need to get out of here. That's a genuine feeling, like self-preservation is a real thing, and this character, he wants to get out. He sees this is bad. We gotta get out of here, and that's not necessarily a wrong thing. The way he handles it may not be the best, but it was important to me to make sure that it's as realistic as possible, that there's genuine emotion and feelings in all this, and that it's not wrong, even if they don't handle it in the best way.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that everybody has that emotional fight or flight response, and
Yep.
everybody handles it differently. So definitely an interesting dynamic there. Can you give us? You might not be able to, but can you give us any insight as to what this unknown threat that the couples are facing?
I can definitely say there are a lot of ideas in the book as to what this thing is. Whether that gets answered or whether that's left up to you, or maybe it's all in how you read it. I can definitely tell you that definitely some inspirations for this were like Night of the Living Dead, The Birds, The Happening, the first Halloween movie, where there are bad things happening. Is it as important as to why or what it is versus the people who need to survive it? So I don't want to say that um, I was looking to just like tell a story and not give people answers, but maybe there's a couple of different answers, and it's really on what do you believe when you're reading it.
Ooh, perspective. I like that. Yeah, that's very cool. Were there any tropes or stereotypes from horror that you were trying to kind of avoid with this book?
There are a couple moments where we kind of poke fun at it a little. A character gets a little playful with it, like, "Oh, guys, this is a bad situation. Like how in Friday the 13th, people in the woods." Like, I didn't want to do anything like too stereotypical, um, but maybe poke fun at a little bit of it if I could.
Exactly. Rules of thumb. Don't go in the woods alone. Don't go wearing high heels because you're going to have to run.
Correct.
If someone falls, don't go after them. They're done. They're
That's
already
right.
dead.
So you just got to run faster than them.
Exactly. So sorry, Curtis, if this happens. If you fall down, man, you're on your own, buddy.
That's it when I have to go. I help! I phone and I can't get up. That sort of thing.
Bye. Sorry.
I'm done. I'm on my own.
Exactly. All right, folks. We are coming down to the end of this conversation, but we get a special treat for you, okay? Because the author is going to read an excerpt from the book, and again, this is coming out October 22nd. But Joseph, man, the floor is yours. Take it away.
I'm actually going to read the excerpt is going to be the first part of the story with the sparrow, because I felt like that was such a unique thing, and I was kind of surprised when you said like, oh, you love that part. So that's what I'm going to read for you.
Sweet.
All right, here we go. Echo Lake, New York, about 40 miles east of Sterling Oaks, August 30th, 6:47 a.m. The mother sparrow broke through the sunlit canopy of leafy whitewoods, towering northern red oaks, white oaks, and various thick and bendy stalks of ash and pine. There were also maples and a few sycamores that filled out the great bed of forest fanning out from the tear-shaped lake. Her view of the water showed a stippling of sunshine fractals on the western edge, while the rest of the lake remained in a sleepy shadow slow to recede with the rising daybreak. She kept low and in proximity to the nest in search of food for her three babies. Their unruly, helpless, and relentless, and yes, perhaps even annoying, pitchy cries for her and their desperation to eat that began promptly at sunup, assaulting her senses in triplicate, spurned within her tiny body like a droning hum that wouldn't be quieted until her offspring had been fed and soothed. A momentous and repetitive task, to be sure. Her need to care for and satisfy them drove her every desire and hunter's instinct, while swooping straight down from the nest and being closer to the ground offered the opportunity at a swift bite to snatch up. She found taking a momentary detour above the treetops offered an escape, a moment's respite in the early morning stillness from the demanding triplicate of screeching. Every mother's sought after moment of peace. But all good things must come to an end. Cutting back down beneath the crown of the forest, the mother sparrow zeroed in on a number of small insects, some zipping about to and fro in seemingly aimless, weaving trails, and some lolling along in lazy straight lines, while others remain stationary as they themselves feed on the rigid tree trunks, which she readily caught and consumed for herself. then snatched up, more to mash up and hold for her nestlings to feed. Upon her hasty return to their little home forged in the shadow and safety of an inside elbow located up high in the arms of a sprawling white oak, that indisputable maternal siren to appease her babies as quickly as possible turned into a pinging alarm of panic. The white-mouthed hunger cries of the pinkish-gray trio had been reduced in volume by one voice. There were now only 2 younglings in the nest. After quickly depositing the buggy puree from her mouth to theirs, the mother sparrow scanned the limbs below, taking flight to search all the way down to the ground in her desperate attempt to locate a fallen, possibly injured baby. Alas, there was not one to find. The mother sparrow's worries turned to seeking out a predator in the skies and surrounding trees. However, that concern was shortly dispelled in her high and low search, considering one wasn't found and no enemy would have left the 2 other vulnerable offspring behind, or at the very least, alive. The 3 would have been killed and taken in short order, perhaps even the mother sparrow herself as well. So what had happened? Where had her baby gone? Familiar cries returned, urging the mother sparrow from the floor of the forest back to the nest. When she landed on the branch just outside their bed, though, there was but a singular screeching, a vocal longing that was different from the song of their hunger cries. This plea was for protection. One baby remained. Again puzzled and frantic, the mother sparrow scanned the other trees above and below for enemies, and again she found none. She inspected the tree from their perch, but neither body of the missing 2 was anywhere in sight. She examined her lone and whining offspring for wounds, but found it completely unscathed, only afraid. There was no reason or source for what had happened. Panic intensified. Desperate to find what was lost, the mother sparrow cried out her own call for help. Her anguished requiem of chirps, along with her baby's continued whimpering, pierced the calm sing-song of the forest, interrupting the morning's otherwise routine serenity with the haunting tune of melancholy.
Damn, man.
Nice.
Man, to hell with the people. I'm really feeling sad for the birds.
Well, maybe we'll do a sequel for the mother sparrow.
There we go. All right, I want to see what happens to the sparrow. I gotta know these things, man. I gotta know these things. Having the characters vanish, is it just like how do you write this? How does it happen?
Well, again, not getting into too much of what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really just, I really wanted to make it important at one point, like just to get that out there. Someone's going to disappear in front of everyone else. And how would that look? They simply just vanish. They're just there 1 minute and then they're gone.
Yeah, that is so good. I like that. I like it because they just boom, gone. There's no scream, there's no cry, there's no like leading up to it. It's just gone.
Just completely.
There are some signs leading up to it, but the act of disappearing itself, I wanted to be simple and not this like long process where paragraphs are needed. It's simply they are gone.
I think I liked it better than some kind of like slasher or a monster or anything like that. It's unknown. There's nothing to run from. There's nothing to fight against. It's just
you can't argue it. You can't reason with it. You don't know what it is.
Ooh. Okay, I don't want you to answer the question exactly, but I do want to know, do we eventually find out what it is?
I think again it's really left to what you believe. You are given a number of possibilities through the book, and I think I want this to be a thing like, at the end of Halloween, Michael Myers vanishes. So what is he? Is he immortal? Where did he go? Like, and then there are shots of all the places he's been, and the idea, John Carpenter's idea is he's everywhere. So I didn't want to put a very specific thing on it and tell you, but I think that there is enough in there for you to be like, I think I know what this is.
You are good at this. I like this. You're very good.
So in the time that has taken you to put this project together and to put this book out, as you were going through, you talking earlier with us through your outline, right? How did you figure out how to pace and organize the horror elements to the story.
I really just kind of think of it as how much drama can I put in there? Because if you care so much about these characters and care what they're going through, then when you get to the horrific moments, that's when it really hits and that's when you really care. If these guys were just fodder, as we talked about earlier, you wouldn't care. You would just be anticipating the horror. It's like every Friday the 13th movie. They make them as cardboard as they can, sometimes even unlikable, so that when Jason shows up, you're cheering. I kind of want the opposite. I want you to care about them so you're kind of dreading when something's going to happen to somebody.
Very good.
Yeah, you're actually very right. Sometimes they are so insufferable and annoying that when Jason shows up, you're like, "Yeah, Jason, fuck him up, go get him,
Yeah.
go Jason,
Yeah,
go."
and they leave us cheering. It's like they do it so that we are like, yeah.
Which is not good, actually. You want to be rooting for the people, but no, you're like, "Fuck him up, Jason, go get him."
That's right.
Oh my
They know
God.
what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Joseph, looking at your past books, you've done a mix of different genres. Of course, you have The Vanishing. This is definitely more a horror story, also some drama. I can recall us talking about Disconnected, which is also kind of a thriller, a bit of a horror story. Renewal, obviously drama. Do you have a preferred genre? Is there one of these sandboxes that you prefer to play in more often?
I do like things that are more thriller, but I'll do anything. Right now, I'm working on a novel for my daughter who she saw Disconnected when I got my first box of books, and she asked me, can you write a book for me? And I was like, "Oh, I can try." And so all this time later, I'm actually closing in on finishing the first draft of a novel for my daughter, which is, I don't want to call it fantasy, but it goes into fantastical things. But it's very grounded. I am not someone who builds an entire world. Like, you're going to see what happens from the perspective of people who people who live in our world, and you're following them. And I try to keep everything as, I guess, real as I can, even though it's all fiction. But I think of the story first with the people, then I go to that other element. Do I want something supernatural in there? Or in the case of Disconnected, I thought, what was the most disturbing thing I could do to this family of four? So it's really, once I know the characters, what it is I want to do to them.
I really want to have you back on to talk about this fantasy book. This sounds really, really cool. And that your daughter inspired it is so awesome.
I just hope she loves it. Well, it started out initially as I was going to do a picture book for her. And then as I was thinking about it, it was like, by the time I'm done, by the time it gets published, by the time all this, she's going to be older. She's not going to want a picture book. So I thought, well, I'm going to make it a story. I took the same story idea. I kind of expanded on it. The message for the book is how we've come to really not trust or fear people we don't know, because it's going to be a while before that one's out. So I can give you a little teaser for it. It's really about this group of people who come to have a stranger show up at their apartment complex, and this family, this family of a grandfather and two grandkids. It's just them. They take this person in, and they care for this person. Meanwhile, you have others who are kind of untrustworthy, like, who's this coming into our place? We don't know them. So you have the mistrust there. But then maybe this person isn't everything that they seem. So now who's picking sides here and what's going to happen?
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Well, folks, we have now come to the end of the story, end of the episode. But guys, get this book, all right? You want to get yourself a copy. The Vanishing at Echo Lake, out on October 22nd. Where do you go? Well, you start by going to josephfalank.com. Joseph, as you spell it, Falank.com. You'll find all the information there. Buy online, go to your local bookstore. You can, if they don't have it, you can order a copy. It's how this whole thing works. And Joseph, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I cannot wait to come back. I will write another book right now just so I can come back on your show.
I like that we're inspiring books, Curtis. This is
For
good.
the blast.
This is good.
Very good.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.
And with that, we bring this episode to a close. Thanks for listening, and if you haven't already, check us out on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. You can catch this and all your favorite episodes on your favorite podcast platform, and new episodes are added every week, as well as on Boston Free Radio every Saturday at 10 p.m. You get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com if you want to suggest a guest, submit your music, or just drop us a line. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.